Okay, so we've got Caruana against Nepomniachtchi, typical Najdorf, I guess. After White's 20th move, Queen G2, and in the game, Nepo played Bishop F8, okay, to bring the bishop to G7 and guard his king side, and the game was drawn a few moves later. But what about the move Rook takes A3? Well, I mean, like I called it the stock sacrifice. It's an obvious move for a grandmaster, and not necessarily a grandmaster. Black is threatening a quick checkmate, but the problem is that White can push the F pawn and defend. Okay, and Black has a few problems. Number one, it looks like White is going to put the queen on B2 and defend, and the other is Black would love to push B2, but the problem is the pawn is pinned against the queen. Well, as it turns out, this is not really that big of an impediment, because after F3, Black can play Queen A7, and basically that gets out of the pin, but also freezes the White queen, because the queen on A7 is looking at the Rook on G1. So the engine says the best White can do is something like Rook GD1, B2, and Queen takes B2. But then Black just takes the Queen and also gets to eat this pawn on G5. And even though the material is essentially even, I think Queen and Bishop opposite colors is definitely a big advantage over two rooks and Bishop opposite colors. But Black also has a bunch of pawns and a very exposed White king. I think that would be pretty easy to win. After Queen A7, another possibility is that the Rook could retreat. Black could play B2. And White could then try Bishop D3, but in this case, Black has a nice move. Bishop takes G5, and actually a pretty cool thread of Bishop C1. And the idea of Bishop C1 is then you go Queen A1 followed by B1 Queen, because you've blocked out the Rook. And if Queen takes G5, Rook C8. So actually, I did notice a little Facebook discussion of this game. It's often very interesting to see what the players out there, what the fans often could be strong grandmasters have to say about such positions. And there's a lot of talk about the third move, like Queen A7, which I don't think is that hard to see, especially third move, right? But this kind of move, Rook C8, threatening Queen A1, and okay, if White takes on B2 now, Black just sets up a very elementary checkmate. So that's kind of the hard stuff. Now there is a bit more to it, because in this sacrifice, Queen A3, White could actually make it a little bit more difficult by playing F4, which would at least guard that pawn on G5. But Black, after F4, Black could still play Queen A7. It's still a strong move. And there are some other possibilities. Rook D1, okay. Rook D1, B2, Bishop D3. And now the computer gives a whole bunch of winning moves. It says Bishop D8 is winning. It says, I think, Rook B3 is winning. E takes F4 is winning. I think maybe E4 is more human-ish, as Queen takes E4, Rook C8. Well, maybe that's not so human. Again, King takes B2, Queen B6 is forcing mate, and if Bishop C4, Queen A4, the bishop can't be defended, and after Rook takes C4, if the Black plays Rook takes C4, he's going to win the Queen as well. Although I have to say that on Bishop takes E4, the engine says Bishop D8 is the best move. Okay, that's not so human. The bishop coming around to B6 and D4, and after Queen takes B2, this I especially like. Rook takes B2 works, but the Stockfish says Bishop B6 is actually the best move, followed by Bishop D4. And even though Black doesn't have so many extra pawns here, the Queen and Bishop still give him a dominant attack, and the White position collapses soon. So there's all kinds of lines like that. Basically, there are some parts of it that we couldn't really expect Nepo to calculate accurately. Although remember that now we're onto slow chess. It's not the blitz rapid anymore. But I think that he would have just had to speculate just slightly, play rook a3 and queen a3, use his intuition, and then uh, advance the frame a little bit and see the moves as he gets closer to them. Um, then and he'd be able to do it. But the thing is, you have to bring yourself to make that initial speculation. Once you know that rook takes a3 works, then you can set about finding the moves that do it. But it's not easy to do even at a high level. And it's just kind of interesting examination of the dynamics. Maybe a position for a future better chess.